Hello, today we're going to talk about the regulation of body temperature. So let's start right into what is body temperature. Body temperature is really quite simple. It is the heat production minus the heat loss. So there are 5 main ways to have heat production. The most important, that encompasses the most kilocalories burnt per day, is in basal metabolic rate or basal metabolism. And so this involves just simply not doing anything, just being alive. You're burning kilocalories. And this is an important process of your metabolism. This can, of course, change with different conditions, such as if you have a high thyroid metabolism or thyroid hormones, you have an increase in metabolism. If you have a low amount of thyroid hormones, you have a decrease in metabolism. The thermic effect of food is another way you increase heat production. As you intake food, you need to digest and absorb those food macromolecules. You need to repackage them into different portions so you can use fats and carbohydrates and proteins, and all that takes energy, and that energy, part of that is heat liberation. Finally, anytime you move, whether it be you're simply wiggling in your seat, you're walking to and fro with activities of daily living, or if you're actively exercising, all produce heat. So basal metabolism, thermic effect of food, and exercise are all normal ways you increase heat production. The final 2 ways of increasing heat production are usually associated with a cold stress. If you're involved in an area in which it's very cold, sometimes you can shiver. Shivering is muscle contraction without involving any useful work, and that produces heat. The final way is through brown adipose tissue. And brown adipose tissue is a very specialized form of adipose tissue. And what happens here is there's an increase in the heat production because your mitochondria will produce heat. And in these specific adipose tissues, there are high concentration of mitochondria and have a specific protein in them that uncouples oxidative phosphorylation. Therefore, as you increase the amount of energy production, more heat is liberated. Now, brown adipose tissue is most important in the infant, less important in the adult. Now, there are 4 primary ways of heat loss. That involves radiation, conduction, convection, and evaporation. Radiation is the first one we'll talk about, and that involves simply a movement of heat between 2 bodies or 2 objects. And this is based upon the temperature at which each of those objects are. And there'll be electromagnetic waves between those 2 objects, a hot object to a cold object. So usually your body is warmer than, let's say, a wall that's you're next to, and so you'll radiate heat out towards that colder object. Conduction is less important in terms of heat loss because there needs to be direct physical contact between 2 substances or items that have different temperatures. So you need to be right in close proximity to that object. And so if you're standing up, the only place that you have good conduction with is at your feet. Now, if you're sitting down on a chair, that's a little bit different. Now you'll have a little bit of conduction between your back and your upper legs. But again, the amount of availability of losing heat via conduction is usually limited. Convection is more widely used as a heat loss mechanism, but this needs to have some sort of medium, and that medium can either be air or water. And why this is important is as air rushes across the skin, you heat up the air right above the skin layer, but then the wind or movement blows past it, and therefore you have to heat up another layer of air. And so the more that's wiped across or more that's blown across the skin, the more you have to heat up. Finally, evaporation only occurs as a heat loss mechanism. And for this particular one, this involves the amount of sweating that a person undergoes can then be used as evaporatory sweat.